You lie in the dark, the ceiling invisible above you, the room wrapped in that peculiar hush that arrives only after midnight has passed and the city has decided, temporarily, to pretend it is resting. It is not silence. Silence would be kind. This is the aftersound of everything. The low drone of the refrigerator cycling in the kitchen, the almost subaudible buzz of the charger on the nightstand, the occasional sigh of pipes in the walls, the far-off growl of a truck that never quite leaves the highway. You shift, the sheet clinging slightly to your skin from earlier sweat, and feel the familiar restlessness coil behind your sternum. Not anxiety exactly, but something thinner, more persistent, like a thread pulled taut and left vibrating. You reach for your phone without thinking. The screen lights your face, cold and clinical, and notifications stack like unanswered letters. A message from someone you love but haven't spoken to in weeks, a news push about a disaster on another continent, a reminder for a meeting you already dread. You scroll. The motion is automatic, narcotic. Images flicker past. Empty subway cars at dawn, a lone figure on a cliff staring into fog, comments beneath a video of someone weeping that read, "This is us now." You pause on a photograph someone posted of an old European square at twilight. Cobbled stones shine from recent rain. In the center stands a squat bell tower, its copper-green patina catching the last light. No bell is ringing in the image. Of course not. Images do not ring. But your body remembers what the picture cannot hold. The way bronze can move through air like a slow tide, gathering people without asking permission. As you set the phone down, screen against the wood, and the afterglow lingers on your retinas like a bruise. You close your eyes. The darkness behind your lids is redder than the darkness of the room. You try to recall the last time a sound arrived that was not yours alone to dismiss or amplify. Perhaps the muezzin's call from the mosque 3 streets over last Ramadan. Beautiful, yes, but each listener adjusted the balcony door, the volume of their thoughts, the degree of attention. No one stepped into the alley together because the sound demanded it. Perhaps an ambulance the other week, its siren parting traffic like a blade through cloth. But people only waited at crosswalks, heads tilted, then continued once the pitch dopplered away. Even concerts now are mediated. Everyone watching the same stage through small, bright rectangles are recording what they are too distracted to fully feel. You turn onto your side. The pillow is already warm from your cheek. Your heart beats a rhythm no one else can hear. You wonder, quietly, without urgency, when time became something carried in pockets instead of something worn across the shoulders of an entire village. In the stories your elders told, not with longing, but with the flat grammar of fact, there was almost always a bell. Not always a church bell. Sometimes a temple gong, a factory whistle, a minaret's recorded call after the muezzin grew too old to climb the stairs. But the function was the same. A single sound that belonged to everyone at once. It rang at dawn, whether your eyes were open or closed. It rang at noon so the men in the fields could stand, press fists into aching lower backs, eat bread torn by hand. It rang at dusk to call the women from vegetable patches, the children from riverbanks, the old from doorways where they sat watching light fail. It rang differently for different passages. 3 measured strokes when a child drew first breath. A slow, single toll repeated for each year an elder had walked the earth. Sometimes 40 tolls, sometimes 80, until the whole village had counted the life while the body was still warm in the bed. Fast appeals for weddings, so girls would run to see the bride's veil. A heavy, continuous knell when the conscription lists arrived, when boys who had wrestled in haylofts were suddenly names on paper. And when peace returned, if it returned, the bell rang long and light, almost joyful, though everyone knew the missing would never hear it. You exhale slowly, or feeling the air leave your lungs colder than when it entered. You do not romanticize this. Your grandmother never did. She spoke of winters when the firewood gave out in February and fingers blackened, of summers when the rye rusted in the ear and children went to bed with bellies clenched like fists of fevers that took 3 siblings in one house before the priest could finish the last anointing. She said, "We survived," not "we were happy." Survival was the ceiling, not the sky. Yet the bell existed inside that survival. It was not decoration. It was infrastructure. It told you where you stood in relation to others, not by command, but by simple acoustics. When it rang, the woman kneading dough felt the vibration through the table. The boy chasing a stray goat stopped mid-stride, mouth open. The old man on the bench lifted his face as if tasting rain. They did not need to speak of community. They lived inside the same bronze wave. For 30 seconds, perhaps 40, the boundaries of self softened. Skin was no longer the edge of the world. The sound moved through ribs, through teeth, through the fine hairs on forearms. You were porous. You were held. Then the echo died. The woman returned to her dough. The boy ran on. The old man lowered his chin. Life resumed its jagged edges. But something remained, like smoke after the fire has gone out. A quiet certainty that you are not floating alone in your own small skull. You roll onto your back again. The darkness presses gently now, less hostile. You think about how your days are sliced into personal units. You choose your alarm tone, gentle chimes or forest rain or nothing at all. And you decide when to eat, what to eat, whether to answer the door when the delivery person knocks. You curate your attention the way a gardener prunes roses. Snip this notification, mute that group, unfollow this voice that once mattered. Freedom, yes. Expansive, glittering freedom. But freedom scatters. Time used to be common land. Now it is private property. Each person tends their own hours, fences them, sells them, spends them on screens that reflect only one face. The bell has been replaced by 1,000 tiny personal bells. Vibrations against wrists, calendar pings, ringtones chosen to signal personality. No one hears the same thing at the same moment unless the moment is manufactured. A minute's silence for national mourning, a stadium doing the wave, fireworks synchronized to music. Even then, half the crowd is filming it for later. You feel the absence like a missing tooth, tongue returning to the socket again and again, surprised each time by emptiness. You breathe in for 4 counts, hold, out for 6. You have read the explanations. Dopamine loops, attention economy, urban alienation, social atomization. You know the words, the way you know the smell of rain on hot pavement. True, familiar, powerless at 4:12 a.m. What you feel is simpler. You miss being summoned, not ordered, not controlled, just summoned. As gravity summons water to low places, as dusk summons swallows to the eaves, as a mother's voice once summoned you from the yard, without ever rising in anger. You remember a morning 2 winters ago, a small hill town. You were walking past a church, no grand cathedral, just stone walls and a crooked spire. At 11, the bell rang for service. You stopped, not from faith, not from intention. You stopped because the street itself stopped. A woman carrying groceries set her bags on the curb. A boy pulled earbuds out. An old man in a wool coat turned his face upward. A delivery scooter idled, engine cut. For half a minute, the air held the sound like a bowl holding water. No one smiled at one another. No one spoke. They simply stood inside the same slow peel. You felt it in your throat, the old animal comfort of synchrony. You were small. You were safe. You were located. Then the last echo faded. Bags were lifted. Earbuds returned. Engines restarted. The street refragmented into separate lives. But for those 30 seconds, you had been gathered. You pull the blanket to your chin. Your pulse has eased. The room feels larger, softer. Let the mind drift backward, not to escape, but to trace the shape of what has been lost. Picture the rope, thick hemp, frayed where hands have pulled for centuries. Picture the ringer, sometimes the sexton with his bad knee, sometimes a boy proud of the responsibility, sometimes no one. the rope tied to a treadle so even a child could swing the clapper. Picture the bronze itself, pitted, green at the edges, heavy enough that the tower trembled slightly with each strike. Up close the sound was harsh, metallic, almost bruising. Only at distance did it mellow into something round and golden. Now picture the listeners. A woman at the washboard pauses, suds dripping from knuckles. A man sharpening a scythe lets the whetstone rest. A girl braiding her sister's hair looks toward the window. They do not think we are a community. They do not post hashtags. They simply exist inside the same acoustic event. For that brief window, the self is less rigid. The I becomes semi-permeable. You are not only in your body, you are also in the sound that is in everyone else's body. When the peal ends, the boundaries harden again. But the echo lingers in posture, in greeting, in the extra moment of eye contact at the well later. That lingering is what modern life has thinned out. You do not wish the hardness back. You would not exchange aspirin for abscessed teeth, vaccines for infant graves, choice for obligation. You are grateful for the right to close your door, to say no, to walk away. Still the longing persists, because meaning was never about comfort. Meaning was about placement. You were placed inside seasons, inside other bodies, inside a rhythm older than your own pulse. As modernity has lifted you out of that placement, it has made you weightless. Weightless feels like liberation until the wind blows at night and there is nothing to hold. You breathe deeper. The ache has become something quieter. Less wound, more memory. Nostalgia is not sentimentality. It is the nervous system remembering synchrony. Your ancestors lived inside constant environmental demand. Cold demanded firewood. Hunger demanded planting. Predators demanded watchfulness. Neighbors demanded cooperation. The self was not a fortress. It was a node in a net. Today, the net has been cut. You float. The floating is exhilarating. Until the night comes and floating feels like falling. You let the thought rest. No need to solve it. No need to mourn it dramatically. Just let it be seen. Your eyelids grow heavier. The darkness behind them is no longer red. It is deep indigo, then black, then something beyond black. Velvet, patient. Imagine, if it helps, a bell not of bronze. A bell made of silence. It tolls once inside your chest. The vibration is so low it is felt rather than heard. It says, you are here. Not yesterday, not tomorrow. Here, in this breath, in this skin, in this moment, no one else can enter. The refrigerator sighs again. Distant, familiar, almost tender. You do not resist it. You let the sound be part of the night. Thoughts drift like ash from a dying fire. Somewhere a bell still rings for someone. Someone pauses. Someone does not. Life moves on. Somewhere alarms will sound in a few hours. Each person will rise into their separate day. You remain here. The ache is still present. But it has softened into something almost companionable, like an old dog sleeping at the foot of the bed. You do not need to gather the scattered world tonight. You only need to gather yourself into this inhale, into this exhale, into this quiet that asks nothing. The inner bell tolls once more, fainter now, then stillness, not empty, full, the kind of stillness that holds every toll that ever rang, every life that ever listened, every echo that ever faded. You let yourself settle toward it, not into sleep exactly, just toward rest. The last ember glows briefly, small, steady, warm, then dims, then is gone. Good night.